the living spirit. All of you. You're all here. We're all living. Ernest Holmes wrote in the Science of Mind textbook, "It is a beautiful and true thought to realize that every person stands in the shadow of a mighty mind, a pure intelligence, and a divine givingness. The farmer has seen the heavenly host in the fields, the miracle of the plants coming up. The child has frolicked with divine spirit at play. The mother has clasped it to her breast, and the fond lover has seen it in the eyes of their beloved. We look too far away for our reality." And that's the title of this talk. We look too far away for reality. So what is reality? Well, if you want to have your mind blown, just go to the internet and ask. So it's like, okay, it's the world in the state of how it really exists, how it really is, right? It actually is this way. Okay, that's one idea. And then the other one is reality includes everything that is or has been, or whether or not it is observable or comprehensible. And a still broader definition, and I'm reading this this was Wikipedia, and I gave to Wikipedia. I donated because I realized I use it all the time. A still broader definition that includes that which existed, exists, or will exist. So there is no time limit on reality. So how many of you have ever used the term perception is reality? That one sounds familiar. And life is how you perceive it. That's your reality. So each of us have, perhaps, I think, my opinion, we have our own sense of reality. Because, we see the same event and we all see it all differently and we interpret it differently. So what is your reality? It's a tough question. But one of the things I want to do is to ground us, which has already been done, but we're going to do it again. I would like you to place your hand on your neck and find your pulse. And if that doesn't work for you, you can also use your wrist, whatever, one you might be more comfortable with than the other. But feel your pulse. Your heart's beating. That's your reality. That's one of your realities. A constant beat. It's your tangible. It's the miracle of life, along with your breath. But we usually, focus on your breath. But wait a second. You've got that heartbeat constantly there. Constantly there. So we are divinity in human form. We are that divine spirit. And you can leave your hand there the whole time if you want. Just to remind yourself, hey, wait a second. I'm a miracle. My heart's beating. And if you can feel it, I tried it. It was not as obvious, but you can put your hand over your heart too. It's harder to discern. But your wrist or your... So, that reminds me that I am here. And Joseph Campbell told us this. He says, we are in a free fall into the future. Oh, yes. Feels like it, doesn't it? And we don't know where we're going. I don't know when he wrote this, but he's been dead for a long time now. Things are changing so fast. And always when you are going through a long tunnel, anxiety comes with you. And you have all you have to do is to transform your hell into a paradise, is to turn your fall into a voluntary act. Surrender, to let go into it. It's very interesting, a shift in perspective, and that's all it is, he tells us. Joyful anticipation in the sorrows, and everything changes. So if we can have a joyful anticipation, and we can do that by knowing how resilient and strong we are. Now, is that easy? No. That's one of the reasons we're here together, to support each other in that. And I told this story, and I've got a lot of stories today because someone asked me to tell more stories. So blame him, and it's not Gary. So, okay. And I hope you enjoy some of these stories. And this one I've actually told before, but I love this story. So how many of you remember the two twins talking in the womb? Nobody? A couple people. Okay. So you've got two twins, and I'm going to play both parts. I'm going to go like this, and then go, okay. So one of the twins says, "Tell me, do you believe in life after birth?" And the other twin says, "Of course. After birth comes life. Perhaps we are here to prepare for what is after birth." Forget it. After birth, there is nothing. From there, no one has ever returned. And besides, what would it look like? I do not know exactly, but it feels like there's lights everywhere. Perhaps we walk on our own 2 feet and eat with our mouth. This is utterly stupid. Walking isn't possible. And how can we eat with this ridiculous mouth? Can't you see the umbilical cord? And for that matter, think about it for a second. Postnatal life just isn't possible because the cord is too short. Yes, but I think there is definitely something, just in a different way than we would call life. You're stupid. Birth is the end of life, and that's it. Look, I don't know exactly what happens, but Mother will help us. The Mother? It's not this side of the room, by the way. Do you believe in Mother? Yes. Do not be ridiculous. Have you ever seen Mother anywhere? Has anyone ever seen her at all? No, but she is all around us. We live within her. And certainly, it is thanks to her that we exist. Well, now leave me alone with this stupidity, right? I'll believe Mother when I see her. You cannot see her, but if you're quiet, you can hear her song. You can feel her love. If you're quiet, you can feel her caress, and you will feel her protective hands. And so when you go through that dark tunnel, you will feel anxiety, but you will also feel the love. We can't predict the future. We don't know what's going to happen. We have no idea, but we can prepare ourselves. We can open up to whatever our gifts are and develop those and have the resiliency and the strength that is ours to give. And if we don't have a certain kind of strength, there are people around us who do, so that we can join together. So trusting and knowing that Spirit is always on the job with us, always with us. In 1999, Gary and I went to Tanzania. We actually landed in Nairobi and took a bus into Arusha, which is a small town in Tanzania. We got there, and there were like 30 of us in a group. It was a large group. And we drove up to this huge, ugly, white hotel. And we got we got inside the lobby, and we were about to check in. And then all of a sudden, we were herded into like a conference room. Well, it turned out that the government had decided to hold a conference and taken the whole hotel over. We didn't necessarily know what was going on right away, but here we are sitting in a conference room in the middle of Africa with nowhere to go, no place to stay. Now, Connie, our tour operator, and Joseph, our guide, were busy trying to sort this out because you had 30 people going, what the? We're in the middle of nowhere. We don't know. Yeah. And this was in 99, and it was soon after the Nairobi, the bombings in the consulate in Nairobi, and we had a little trepidation. But anyway, so eventually they come in and they take us out of the conference room and put us into 2 different buses, and then we go off to different places. Turned out they took us to hotels where locals would stay. So we got this charming little thatched cottage, and it was fantastic. But, we didn't know what was going to happen. But it was the trusting the process. And it was better than staying in that white monstrosity. And it introduced us to the country in a glorious way. And the people were great. It was so fun. So we were prepared to be flexible, to go with the flow, to know what was going, and not know. He's like, oh, okay. You're like, well, what are you going to do? Anyway, so what our job is to do the next most logical or obvious thing. So the next most logical thing for me to do is to finish this talk. The next most obvious thing for you to do may be to get a cup of coffee after service. And don't worry about what happens after that, because something else will be obvious or logical to do after that. So you just keep going. And you never know that you're doing something that you love, that you just love it. You never know. Look at all the kids look at some of us who were on video games when we were little, or I used to watch a lot of TV. My mother thought I was going to be like, useless. Don't say anything, anybody. And the thing, she made me learn how to type. I don't know how many of you had to take typing in high school. She made me learn how to type because she wanted me to be able to type my college papers when I went to school and not have to pay for it. That was her goal. Well, in the computer age, it's a gift to be able to type, or at least it was until I got on my smartphone. But anyway, so, the thing is, it's like, you don't know when a skill that you're picking up just because you like doing it isn't going to be useful. You have no idea. You might as well go and do what you love and learn and grow with it. And even like they're talking about cursive writing in schools, teaching the kids how to write. Well, you know what? My reality comes out when I journal write. When I write with my hand and a pen and a piece of paper. That takes me deeper than working on my computer. Now, everyone's going to be different, but some kids aren't going to know how to write, or they can't read cursive either. There's all sorts of things going on, but you never know. They may never need that skill. We think it's really important because we have it. It's all these things. You just, what's your reality? What's your reality? And then not knowing what's going to happen. Okay. Hello. I want to tell a really short story, and the musicians will appreciate this. Gary and I were in Melbourne, Australia, at the Parliament of World Religions. And the Agape Choir was there. And so you had Ricky Byers-Beckwith, and everybody was there and stuff. And so they were doing a performance. The choir was doing a performance. But they've got 200 members. They did not pay for 200 people to go to Melbourne, Australia. So they were out recruiting anybody who knew the songs. They didn't care if you could sing. Well, I mean, I could carry a tune, so it was okay. but Deborah Gordon, who is married to Ken Gordon, who's the spiritual leader, all of us were there. So they recruited a bunch of us, and they put us into rehearsal. So we were doing our prep, and then they put us on stage in a big auditorium, and we sang. So I'm a member of the Agape Choir. But the thing is who knew that? The only reason I was there to do that was, A, I was there, but B, I knew the songs of the Agape Choir. And the last song that we're going to sing today is a Ricky Byers-Beckwith song. So when you're singing that song, picture yourself on stage in a huge auditorium with a huge audience listening to you, and you're standing on the risers and the whole bit. Because you never know what's going to happen. You need to be prepared. And everything is useful. Everything is useful. So now we're back in Tanzania. And it's a safe place to get out of the trucks. So we've gotten out of the trucks and we're having lunch. And there's this he's probably about an inch long, a little beetle. And he has this little ball of manure. I cleaned it up. Manure. And he's pushing this little ball of manure. And then he falls over, and the manure rolls back down the hill. And he's pushing it, push. So we're looking at him, going, he's rolling a ball of shit. And Joseph, who is our naturalist guide, he goes, yes, but he's taking it home to his children. Because when they're hatched, that's their nourishment. That's what they eat. So they're eating, nothing's ever wasted. The manure is that. And so what is one person's manure is someone else's gift. That beetle was that was perfect. And how many of you have ever seen Mythbusters? Oh, never mind. Okay. Well, it's just they spent a whole program polishing some manure, and it's possible. Yeah, you never know. So no discount the the thing. Gosh, truth is stranger than fiction. And then, how many of you have been following the story of Jaden and Anais McDonald? Okay. I told some of you about it 2 months ago. They were the two twin boys that were conjoined at the head. So on October 14th, they were 13 months old, and they were separated. Well, on December 14th, they left the hospital and went into rehab. They're doing fabulously. They're doing amazingly. And they have a 3-year-old brother, and all these cute pictures online. But they had a big party with all the staff and stuff when the boys were leaving the hospital. And their mom was there, of course. And she was telling the story about when she was pregnant, she knew that she was carrying conjoined twins, but that she knew that the boys would be separated and that they would have a good outcome, that they would survive. And a lot of them don't. And anyway, there's all sorts of facts. But she says, I knew I would have a miracle. I didn't know how. She repeated, I didn't know how. And I want to remind all of us, we don't need to know the how. All we need to know is what our desire is. We don't need to know the how. And she continues, I prayed every day for God to make the how happen. And you are all the how. And she was saying this to the medical staff. And she said it through tears. And she was thanking them for everything that they had contributed to having her boys be able to leave the hospital. And they're little kids. And there's this one picture on there, and this one kid is going, ah. It's so cute. But prayers are so key, so important. Ernest Holmes tells us, prayer in its truest sense is an alignment, a unifying process that takes place in the mind as it reaches to its divine self and to the power which is greater than human understanding. In the act of such prayerful and reverent communion with God, one senses the unity of good, the completeness of life, and at the time, the veil of doubt is lifted and the face of reality appears. So we co-create our reality every single moment. And then the power of it is to use the tools that we've been given to magnify that, to direct our thoughts through the divine universal mind. So we talk about affirmative prayer, we talk about spiritual mind treatment, one and the same thing. But what they are is, the first thing you do is you recognize the all-powerful nature of God, that divine creator that for whom nothing, absolutely nothing is impossible. You recognize it. And then you get that you are one, you're unified with that spirit, that you sprung from that spirit. So those are the first two steps. And the third step is embracing the realization of the experiences that you want to have in this life. It could be material, but oftentimes it's a state of being that you want, your desires. And I always put this or something greater into my treatments when I'm doing that kind of stuff, because I can dream and imagine so much, but spirit has a greater vision than I do. And I'm open to that greater vision. And I demand that. I say that. That's true. And then, of course, you're grateful. You're grateful for the divine creative process that you know about, that you can work with, that you can put your thoughts out into, your desires, your conviction. And then you're grateful for what shows up, the manifestations. You're grateful what your life looks like. The people you know, the experiences you have, the comfort you have, the material. And then the other last piece is that you let it go. You don't try and control it, say it has to look like this, and you're in acceptance. So we've shifted our consciousness to demanding it and missing it to knowing it's already ours. It's already ours in mind. It's just going to show up now on the material plane. And how fast that happened, you don't have control over that. We do not have control. It could come like in a second. Or it could take, if we're digging up, we plant the seed, if we're digging up the plant all the time, it's going to take longer to grow. It's going to take longer to get into root. Because we believe, this is Ernest Holmes again, we believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God. So it operates through us. And the divine creative law is always working, always working. Carl Jung says, who looks outside dreams? Who looks inside awakens? So I'm going to end today with asking you to put your hand back on your pulse, wherever you like. Just feel it. And then I'm going to read a poem by David White called Start Close In. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing close in, the step you don't want to take. Start with the ground you know, the pale ground beneath your feet, your own way of starting the conversation. Start with your own question. Give up other people's questions. Don't let them smother something simple. To find another's voice, follow your own voice. Wait until that voice becomes a private ear listening to another. Start right now to take a small step you can call your own. Don't follow someone else's heroics. Be humble and focused. Start close in. Don't mistake that other for your own. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing close in, the step you don't want to take. So go for more in your life. Embrace your precious life. Take your next courageous step, even if you don't want to. Because God, Spirit, Universal Mind is supporting you in your reality right here, right now, and the reality that you're co-creating in the future. So let's do our affirmation together. I'll say it once and we can You can repeat it together. It's also in the bulletin if you like. In my oneness with Spirit, I create my reality. In my oneness with Spirit, I create my reality. In my oneness with Spirit, I create my reality. In my oneness with Spirit, I create my reality. Namaste.